Good morning. We're ready to do our last reading lesson for the week. Now, we're going to be doing, it's a literature lesson today, so that means we don't have a story, but we do have something to kind of discuss a little bit. There's 2 work text pages, but we're only going to do one of them because one of them we don't really need to do. Now, well, I'm going to go over one page with you, but we're only going to do one. Okay, so what we're talking about today is American folk songs. Now, we've talked about, when in Heritage Studies, we talked about people that worked on the railroads, so railroad workers. We also, during the Civil War time, we discussed slaves, and there were American slaves. We've also discussed another group of people, cowboys. So we've discussed cowboys, railroad workers, and slaves. Now, these 3 groups of people they didn't have Pandora in those days, or Google Music, or whatever they have today, YouTube. They didn't have any of that kind of stuff. They didn't have video games or phones or anything to keep them busy when they had time off, or even when they're working. Sometimes when I'm working, or even my daughters, when they like to go in there and it'll be their day to do the dishes, they'll stick earbuds in their ears and turn their devices on so they can listen to music. Or sometimes they'll turn on our Google and she'll play music, and we'll do that, and we'll dance around the kitchen while we do things or whatever. But it's fun when you're having to do something to listen to music. It kind of helps the time go by a little bit faster, and whatever the work you're doing, it kind of makes it go by faster. Well, they were no different, but they didn't have YouTube and earbuds to stick in their ears. They had to make up their own songs. The songs that they made up, a lot of them you've probably heard in some form or fashion. Maybe you didn't know that's what it was, but it's called American folk songs. Now, I looked on the internet. I was going to get some samples of some songs to play for you, but I couldn't really find any that made sense, so I didn't. But you can actually go online, but you'll have to do it with permission, and see if your grandmother can find you some American folk songs. But anyway, so let's go ahead and look. These are 3 words that we're going to come across today in our reading. We just have 2.5 pages to read today about American folk songs. So reading the story of Jesus' birth is a Christmas tradition at our house. A tradition is something that you do every year. 4 cans of soup and 2 winter coats were our contributions for the poor families. A contribution is something you give. It was easy to march slow and then fast to the rhythmic song. Rhythmic means it has a good beat to it, has a good rhythm to it, and it's easy for you to move along to it. Okay, take your reader book out and turn to page 108. All right. At the top of 108, says literature lesson, then it says American folk songs. So I've already talked to you about the 3 different groups of people that came up with folk songs. We've talked about railroad workers and cowboys and slaves. They all had work to do, and their work was long and hard, so they came up with different songs to help them go through it. All right, so let's go ahead and read along. Now I'm going to read. You must follow along with me. Let's start on page 108. On his way home with his balking mule, Johnny sang a song with his teacher to cheer himself up. Such songs as Johnny's Hey Hey, Step and Go Lightly are called folk songs. The tradition of folk songs has been passed down to us from the beginning of American history. British common folk who settled in the New World liked to sing the songs from their homeland to cheer themselves up. They sang about knights and nobles, British holidays, and British traditions. But as the colonists began to feel more and more at home in America, they changed the words of their songs to fit new people and new events. Their songs became American in nature instead of British. Thus, American folk songs were born. Settlers from other countries made their contributions to American folk songs. Melodies from countries like Ireland and France joined with the English tunes. At first, American folk songs were mostly ballads or songs that told stories. They were usually about a broken romance or a tragic death. But as the people from different countries began to live and work together, they made up many songs that told other stories. Some songs, like the one Johnny sang, were silly and didn't really mean anything important. The mountain people developed songs with simple tunes and easy words, like Go Tell Aunt Rhody. This song tells a story, but it leaves out most of the details. It also includes a catchy rhythmic tune and lines that are repeated often. When slaves came to America, folk songs changed a little more. Slavery songs added much sadness and tenderness to American folk music. The slaves sang about everything in their lives: the land, the weather, their hard work, even the tools they used. They sang jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton to keep in time with the back-breaking work they had to do. The slaves, of course, were the ones who developed the Negro spiritual. This type of song became a part of American folk music too. Some Negro spirituals are not accurate about the Bible or about God. Because most slaves couldn't read, they made some mistakes. The song Michael Row the Boat Ashore doesn't have a spiritual message, but many slaves thought that it did. Many spirituals, however, are a testimony of the faith and cheerfulness of black Christians in early America. They were locked into slavery on earth, but they were spiritually free by the blood of Christ. American folk music differs throughout the country. The lumberjacks in Oregon sang songs different from those sung by farmers in Georgia and South Carolina. This difference occurred because folk songs were passed down only orally. Nobody wrote down the tunes or the words. The songs were not sold to be recorded or to be printed in music books. Only the common people sang them. Because the common people didn't travel far, their music didn't change a great deal. Southern folk songs tend to tell about life on the farms, the crops, and perhaps hunting. Folk songs from the West usually tell about cowboys, cattle drives, Indian attacks, and buffalo herds. But the source of folk music hasn't changed. It's still the music of everyday people doing everyday things. Now there's a song there on page 111. Now I go to a little small church. It's a Baptist church, and oftentimes in the singing that we do, some of the hymns that we sing from old hymns, and a lot of times those old hymns, some of them are actually old spirituals, and this is one of them. It's called Were You There? And it goes like this. Now I'm not going to sing the whole thing, but the tune goes like this. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, and then it goes, oh. Anyway, it goes over and over about, were you there when they crucified my Lord? Then part 2 says, were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Part 3, were you there when he rose up from the grave? And they would sing these songs, but the tune, which I can't be in tune, I'm not a singer, but I kind of gave you the how they did, they did it kind of slow and rhythmic because they were picking cotton and they were working and doing hard things while they were singing it, reminding them of what God had done for them and that they were free actually, but not really. Okay, in your work text, look at page 45. Now this page at the top says John Henry, and it's an optional page, so we're not really going to do it. I just wanted to kind of give you a clue as to who John Henry was. It's never really been proven that he was a real person, or even if this contest took place, we don't know. But in this song about John Henry was a big, strong man, and he worked for a railroad company. And he would use his big giant hammer, his sledgehammer, to put the holes in the ground where they would put the explosives so they could, they could blow up things when they were building the railroad. Now, then about this time, somebody invented a steam drill, which didn't need people to do that anymore by hand. It was now done by machine. But John Henry said he could beat that thing, and he was called the steel driving man. And apparently there was a contest between he and the steel driver, and that's the legend of John Henry. But we don't really know if he was ever real. Now I will tell you this, there's a movie that you might want to watch Remember back several weeks ago we were working on and we were reading a tall tale about Pecos Bill? Well, there's a movie. It's an older movie. I used to have it on video, but I don't anymore. But you could find it on Amazon or something. It's called Tall Tale. And it's about Pecos Bill. It's about Babe and his blue ox. And even John Henry is in that. And it is a wonderful movie. So I'm going to put that on here as a note to your grandmother to see if maybe she might want to find that movie and let you watch it. It's a really good show and I think you would enjoy it. All right, can you look at page 46 in your work text? I know my rooster's crowing. He's making noises. At the top of this page, there's the different groups of people that sang the different types of different types of folk songs. Okay, you've got the railroad workers, you've got American slaves, and you got cowboys. So what your job is, and I'm not grading this page. There's six questions or 6 pieces of songs. Your job is to read each little section and then choose which group may have sung that song. Okay? Now at the bottom it says to tell your thoughts. I would like for you to do this. I'd like for you to write me about 3 or 4 sentences about what you think it would be like to be outdoors at night by yourself, way out in the middle of nowhere. Okay? What you might do. Would you sing some songs? Would you put your earbuds in? Would you leave them at home? Would you sing to yourself? Would you tell yourself stories? Would you write? Would you read a book? So write about 3 or 4 sentences, just a short paragraph, telling me what you think it'd be like and how you would do if you were by yourself. Okay? All right, so that will be all for today.